Hey guys, we got some questions around the Lago Stripe native integration. And the good news is that if you're using Lago, you don't have to use Stripe billing. You only have to use Stripe payments. So all your products, prices, plans, and subscriptions will be defined in Lago. You don't have to define that in your Stripe account. And that's a good news first because you only have to use one Stripe product, that is Stripe payments. And you also define everything in Lago so you have only one source of truth. All right? So I'm going to show you how to connect Lago and Stripe in your Lago account. You have to go to your settings, integrations, and you will find a Stripe connection. You can connect multiple Stripe accounts, and the reason why is that if you have multiple Stripe instances, then that's very useful. You can connect all them in Lago. Then the connection is made through the secret key. So you will have to find this secret key and paste it here. And once you've done that, the integration, the Lago Stripe native integration is connected, right? You can add a redirect link if you need after the payments to redirect your customers to a very specific page. And I'm going to show you now how it works. So I've been defining some very specific products and plans in my Lago accounts. And again, don't define that in your Stripe accounts. Define products, prices, and plans within your Lago account. Here I got a very specific charge, which is a subscription fee for $100. All right. First, I'm going to show you how to create a customer from Lago to Stripe. So I'm going to here create a customer, and let's say I'm going to do Stripe customer test. This customer is going to be named Stripe customer test with an ID. And here under the connections information, you will find Stripe as a payment provider, your very specific connection you've been defining before. And here you have two ways of connecting Stripe and Lago customers. The first way to do that is to migrate an existing customer from Stripe to Lago. And for this, you can simply paste the Stripe customer ID here in Lago, and we will create a one-to-one relationship between Stripe and Lago's customers. Another way is that if this customer does not exist in Stripe, you can ask Lago to create this customer automatically. You can define a payment method, and then by creating this customer, we are going to create this customer automatically in Stripe. So here you got automatically the Stripe customer ID within your Lago account, and Lago did a one-one relation between this customer in Lago and the customer in Stripe. So if I'm going into the customer section, you can see that this customer has been created. This customer, to start collecting payments, you will need to define a payment method. And you have two ways of doing that. First, you have a webhook message in your Lago account that is a customer checkout link that we create anytime there is a customer created in your Lago account. Here you can find and fetch this very specific checkout link, and that's a way to do that. But if you don't want to use the webhooks, then there is a very specific endpoint for that. So let me check that. You're going to go to the customer object, and you can decide to regenerate a checkout link. So let's do that. So let me get back to my Lago account, to the customer. I'm going to take this ID, and I'm going to go into my customers, and I'm going to use the regenerate checkout link. So let's do that. Here I got an endpoint, and the response is a checkout link. So that's very useful if you want to display this information to your end customer. So let's store a payment method. I have to define an email, so stripe@test.com, for example. I have a test card information here, so I'm gonna put that. And I'm gonna do the Stripe test name, for example, for the card holder. And here I'm going to save the card, right? If you go back into your Stripe account, now there is a payment method defined, and then you can start collecting payments. And the good news is that at Lago, we don't store the card information, but we store the payment method that is used. So we can collect recurring payments from invoices generated in Lago. You don't have to set up that all the time. You set up that once and Lago does the job, right? So I'm going to go back into my Lago accounts. And here there is a payment methods and there is a customer created. I'm going to assign a plan and you will see how Lago automatically collects payments for an invoice that is issued. So I'm going to assign a subscription in my Lago accounts. This will issue in Lago a very specific invoice, $100 invoice, right? And this invoice has been paid, and the reason why is that we use the payment method for this customer and we trigger the payment intent directly. So here you got a successful payment for $100. So Lago takes care of all the payment intents and collect payments directly for invoices. And also if you here go into your customer and your invoices, you will see that this invoice is automatically succeeded as a payment status, meaning that we collect the payment status directly from the payment intent made through Stripe. All right? So you don't have to update the payment status yourself. There is another way to generate a checkout link for a specific invoice. So we have a specific endpoint called for the invoice object generate a payment link. So for a very specific invoice, you can generate a new payment link, right? So I'm going to go into invoice, and here there is the specific endpoint. You can decide to paste the invoice ID issued by Lago, and here in that case, it's not possible to generate this link because the invoice has already been paid, right, through Stripe. So we know exactly what's the payment status also. But you could generate a payment link by doing that. The last thing you will have to do is, if in case you need to do some refunds, again, you don't have to go into Stripe to do that. Lago takes care of the refunds connection, and to do that we can issue a credit note. So here I'm going to create a credit note in Lago. There is a cancellation reason, for example, and I'm going to refund the entire amount for this invoice. Then I can define how to refund this invoice. There are two ways of doing that. First, you can credit on the customer wallet in Lago, or you can decide to refund the customer. And in that case, if you define that you want to refund the customer, we will trigger a refund request to Stripe directly. So Lago takes care of that also. So I'm going to issue a credit note. You can see that the refund status has been updated, and the reason why is that Lago requested to Stripe to issue a refund. So we take care of that also. If I do update here that very specific page, you will see that Lago requested a refund, and then as we are directly connected to Stripe, we triggered a refund intent, and that's working out of the box. I hope that's a clear explanation of how we work with Stripe and how we collect payments through the integration, the native integration we have.